Alright guys, welcome back to the bench side of the room here. I knew this was going to happen. I didn't want to do it. I was reading some comments and, I talked about wiring the engine and all that stuff, but I was looking at it and I thought, you know what? I didn't realize I took the intake back off. So I took our plenum back off and I'm looking at these lines here. Those two lines there, those are water. There's little water lines that come off here, and along this side of the engine there should be a metal tube that runs along here for the heater core, and it comes down, tags into the inside here, the intake, and then there's another one that goes down to the out of the water pump. Those two lines will go back and into the heater core, but they had a heated throttle body, obviously for cold states and whatnot. So they ran a little hose that would come off here and went down into that line and one to the back. And I thought, you know what? That'd be cool to do that. So as I'm looking at it, and I thought, they got holes for injectors in here. These marks right here. So I took a pin drill, took this fancy apparatus, and I just started drilling some holes in here. Like so. So I went through and did all those already. What size is this bit, you say? You know, that is a really good question, because I have this set here and they're all mixed match. I really don't know. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know what size it is. Looking at it, I'm gonna say it's probably one of the smaller index for accuracy. Well, that's no longer the case. I'm gonna guess it's probably a 68 or a 66. I'd have to measure it with a set of calipers. So I'm going to do is make injectors on this. I thought, how cool is that? So I got thinking, what am I going to use for that? So I have the old evergreen styrene stuff here. So we're going to use this 20 thousandths rod, and we're going to use this 10 by 30 strip. So we're going to use the rod as the injector, and I'm going to take the strip, which I got a little piece cut here, and I'm going to put just a little tab on there, and that would be like where your electrical connector would be. So just not a round stub sticking out of there. So what I'm going to do is put these together, and I drilled these holes all the way through. So these are drilled because it didn't take nothing to drill these in. So these go all the way down. So if you drill these through, say it goes all the way through. So this way here, it don't really matter how long I cut this. I mean, I'll keep them pretty much best I can. But this way here, I can run them a little long if I wanted to. And that way I can just slide it on the hole. And then I'm going to take some of this metal wire, this wire here, and this is going to be my fuel rail. So I'm gonna, once I get them in there, I'm just going to put this on here. And this will wrap around and go to the other side. Like so. So I think that'll look pretty cool. But this side here, I'm going to leave it really long, because on the real car, this comes down and makes a bend and comes down and around and goes to the back of the car. So that's what we're going to try to attempt. I don't know if I'm going to use this yet. I might find something different. I got a lot of different wires here. So we're going to get started on this and we'll see how this works out. Because I don't know. I've never done this. So I'm just looking at it and I thought, you know what? I'm going to pop that out because I saw those holes in there. I thought, you know what, that'd be really cool. Let's put some injectors in there. I was actually just going to put that water line in there and run some little rubber hoses down there. I thought, how super cool would that look? So we're going to just keep these somewhat uniform. Let me find something to measure these with. So we need 8 injectors, maybe a 1/16 each. Did you see where that went? Because I didn't. Alright, we'll try that again. Hang on to it this time, dang it. Okay, very good. Okay, I'll get these all cut up and I'll bring you back. Alright guys, so I got my little injectors cut and I got these little pieces here cut. So I may have to cut those down just a little bit more. So I took my knife and I just took this piece and I just basically just chop. You know, I just took a few of them. I mean, I didn't get no crazy carried away. It's kind of tedious. I mean, this may not be for everybody. It's almost not for me. And I'm sure there's probably a better way to do this, but maybe you can buy them. I don't know. But, you know, to me, what's the fun of modeling if you can't just make it yourself? Yeah, I know. Sometimes the store stuff's a lot cooler looking, but... So what I do is I take my little alligator clip and just stick it on the end like that. Now this is just the tricky part. So I take this guy, real nice like, and I get some glue going here. Put it on pretty decent. So with just bare styrene like this, it actually starts sticking pretty quick. So what I do is I just take this and I set it just on here, kind of towards the top, towards level. And I just kind of crushed it on a little bit to make sure it stays good. So we're about level with the top. So I let it set for just a few minutes and I take my knife and then I separate it. I split it a little bit. Like that, just open it up, pull it back. So you can see now we got like a little Y. Nothing, I mean, it's simple, just nothing. Like I say, I'm just making this up as I go, so I really don't know, but it's kind of looking pretty cool. So we're doing that with it. So I let that set for just a few minutes. Like I said, we'll let that dry. So I put one in the engine already. I painted them red. Like I say, we're doing some performance stuff in here. So how's that look cool? Can you see that? Oh, it's focusing or not. So what we're gonna do is put them all on there. And I was gonna take that steel wire, but I think I changed my mind. I think I'm gonna use the same size styrene rod that I used to make the injectors. And I'm gonna just cut this. I'm gonna come back here and I'm gonna cut it about here. And I'm gonna do the same for the front. And then I'm gonna take a piece of this rubber hose, or this wire, and I'm gonna just tack it on there and loop it around, because that's how the real one is. So this guy here is probably pretty dry by now. So I'm taking one of these, just these Elmer's paint markers. And this is what I find is kind of the trick to this, to make it look kind of real. Put the paint on really heavy, especially at the little spot there. So just kind of wick it in there and let the paint fill the hole. So see how the paint kind of filled the hole? Get the rest of it here. So there, just like that. See how the paint kind of filled it in? So it kind of gives it that illusion like it's got a connector on the end of it. So obviously you can paint these different colors. I think the factory ones on this car, they were probably either black or like a tan color. But I kind of want them to stick out. And like I said, I know a lot of aftermarket ones, when you boost your fuel system up, you put higher pressure injectors in. A lot of them are red. And I know some of the replacement ones from Ford, they're pink. So we're going to go with this. Like I say, that way they stick out. So I got another one made here. So what I'm going to do is get them kind of close. And I'm just going to slide them in the hole. So I'm going to get one side made. And I'll show you guys what it looks like here in a minute. Because like I said, these are kind of tedious to put together. I guess if you don't have patience, they're going to be very aggravating for you. Like I say, maybe there's a different way to do this. I don't know. I'm just playing. I just thought it looked cool. Because they had the holes for it. And that plenum sits up high enough to where they'll be easy to see it and all that good stuff. So I just figured, hey, why not? Let's try it and see what it looks like. So like I said, just give her a good heavy shot of glue here. And I just take one of these. And like I didn't measure these out. I just started snipping them. I just went to town, just start cut, you know, just nothing magic. So that's not too bad how that goes on there. You know, it goes on pretty easy. The trick is kind of to pull it back. So I found it just works better with my knife. Just get in between here because it's already starting to set up. So you can see it's just tight against that. There we go. Just kind of hold it for a minute, keep it there. Just like that. I'll let that tack up just for a little bit. So one of these I did is when I first started it, I thought, you know what? Okay, we're good. I'm going to put more glue in it. Yeah, that just reactivated and the thing just folded right tight, and I had to throw that one in the garbage because it got to the point where it's going to go where it wanted to go, and it just stayed there. Yeah, so I don't know. Like I say, I think they work pretty cool. So let this one set, and so that is 4. So I'm gonna paint that one here in a second. And like I say, I'm gonna mark this out, and we're just gonna cut this, and I'm gonna just put a drop of CA on the top and glue these down, and I'll take a Molotow pen and I'll just wipe it across to give it that stainless look. Like I said, I was gonna use the metal, but I don't think it's gonna work as well for me. That metal's not the most friendliest culprit to work with. That didn't work out, did it? We'll see how that works. Like I say, I'm just trying something out here. Just kind of like experimenting with things. I guess that'll work. Just it goes past the plenum, so that'll work. Nice little straight piece. Okay, so this should be done. Get my paint pen here. And obviously you could use any type of paint, but like I say, I think it works best to fill it in and just make it heavy up top so it fills the gap. So I'm not like painting it, I'm just dabbing it, because obviously I don't want it to break. I was at Hobby Lobby the other day and I got me some new clips. Other ones are getting pretty womped out. For a few bucks, you know, why not? So see how that paint kind of fills that in? So it gives that illusion like it's got a connector on there. And this needs to go a little higher because I can't get in there and paint that. Let's move this up a little bit. About right there. Give a little dab do here and see what she does here for us. Now I did notice these are a little long, even though drilling my hole all the way through. So I had to cut that first one I put in. So yeah, something like that. Like I say, that paint fills in that gap a little bit. So we're gonna let this set for a minute, and I'm gonna get these installed. So let's see, what's another one we just did here. So this one we just did a minute ago. So that's pretty dry. See, it paint's kind of a flatter look. So I know those are going to be too tall. So we're going to just cut this down just a little bit. And it's stuck to the clip, which is alright. Yeah, we're still a little wet. Still a little wet. Hang on to it here. Let's say right about there. See what that does. Yeah, that's still a little tacky yet. I don't know if it'd be worth trying to put it in or not. Nope. Where did that just go? Oh, over here. Oh, I hate when that happens. Don't you guys hate when that happens? You think you got a good grip on it and across the room it goes. So another one put in the hole. Like so. That looks pretty cool. So it looks like it's got a little piece sticking out for the wire to go on. I might even get creative and put a little wire harness on there. I don't know if I will or not. That'd be getting really like, ooh, I don't know. If I did, it'd have to be probably with a piece of black string or something, because that'd be pretty fine to try to do that. So let's see, we'll get another one in here. This one's looks like she's dried up pretty good. Alright, get that up there. Yeah, look at that there. Cut that down just a little bit. So like I say, obviously they made these just a little too long. Okay, So as long as that stays attached for me. So there's the other one. Make sure they're facing the same way. All right, guys, we got one side done. Didn't turn out too bad. So let's see, cylinder number 7. I have that injector stick out a little too far, but yeah, I actually have that piece that I bend out. I have that just a little too far over, but it's going to be under the plenum. That's why I did that side first. So hopefully you won't see that as bad. I really don't know if I want to try to move it at this point because it's now glued down. So like I say, I used just a piece of styrene, just a styrene rod, and hit it with the Molotow pen. And we'll get this other side put in. So I have all my other ones made. Yours are all done and painted. Like I say, they're simple, but like I say, I think they do the job. So like I said, I gotta cut these down just a little bit because they're a little too long. And I've already lost 2 of them, so I caught them with the edge of the tweezers and away they go. So they don't take much for them to go missing. I'm sure I'll find them when I sweep up later on. So what I'm doing is I'm putting just a little touch of glue in here. I am gluing them in. I tried gluing just the piece on the top first, but I had to readjust it. Of course, it popped out the hole. Not that great. I think maybe that's why that one's off a little bit. So I found I have to glue those in and make sure they're pretty level. So what I'm doing is I'm just lining them up to the top of that plenum. So we're just using our Loctite control gel control. Now we're just putting a little dab in there, just a little dab will do you. So when you're putting these in there, you want to keep the sensor kind of like where your plug would go. You want to keep that to the outside. So I find it's easy to just grab them with the tweezers. So that little connector piece is facing out or in. So that way you know where, that part of it's going to be. And the sensor spot doesn't have to be perfect because they're not on a regular car, because they do turn a little bit. So my main thing on the front here, I just want to make sure I got them level across the top. So when you're looking at it. So this is day 2. These have dried overnight. So I'd say they're a little easier to work with today. I think I got that one just a little low, but that's alright. Alright, so now I think I'm going to use the rod, because I really like to use the wire because it's already kind of a nice stainless look. But this has to be bent at a really sharp angle. So as long as that'll bend nice without breaking. I should look in my book and see which way that goes. I think it might go down like so. Kind of like that. So yeah, so that looks pretty cool. So looking at my prototype here, you can see the fuel line. Like I say, they got a rubber hose. Get you in the picture here. You got a rubber hose going from bank 1 over to bank 2 for your fuel line. You got your regulator here, and then they have, like say, see one injector this turned this way, one connector's turned this way. So you got a disc quick connect here, so the line goes down and around the front of the valve cover and down. So we're going to try to simulate that as well and see what we can do here. Okay, we're just going to take a little drop across the top of each injector. Just a little drop's all I need. So I think I'm just going to put this on like this for now. So I need this to go down behind that alternator, but man, I'm just having a fight. Fight. She's Fight Club Central right there. See, now all goes good there, but once I go put the glue on it, Yeah, we're gonna just cut that up. We'll glue that on later. That's just too much of a hassle. And besides, I won't be able to take the Molotow pen and, you know, take care of that either. So I want to make sure this is even with this. And of course I got that right where an injector is going to be. About like so. We'll just let that set for a minute. Yep, I got number 2 is a little high, injector 2, so of course it's in the middle, so it's wanting to rock it back and forth. Let that glue set up for a second. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool. I'll zip that with the Molotow pen. I think I'm going to use the fat pen. I got this big boy here. I think this is a 4mm, so it's just a big heavy. Oh yeah, just smear it down and get it done. So I see this side's kind of wiped up a little bit. We need to dry a little bit more there. So I'll bring my other line up and I'll basically bend it right in front of that distributor. I may even cut that back just a little bit once that dries really good. I'll take a little bit of this. This is basically like a rubber. We're going to just loop this across the back. No, I'm having a hard time seeing this. It's like blends in really well. Alright guys, I tried the rubber thing on here and it's just, my patience just isn't working tonight. Alright guys, so I'm just taking a piece of styrene, just the same as I used on the rail, and I'm just bending it around with my tweezers, just making a little 90 on it. Getting it somewhat close. And that side in a little U shape. Now I don't want it to be too sticking out too far. This is when I get it in the car, I don't want it hitting my firewall, so I'm going to trim this down now that I got it bent. That should do the job. Okay, that tried my patience, like more ways than one. So just the regular, to me, it worked great for that. All is well. So now I'll just take and paint that black, and the injector should be done. Now I think I might take a piece of wire, a little piece of string, and run across that and simulate some wire harness on there, just for added fun. Alright guys, so we're going to put some plug wires on this. So I'm using my Walther's wire that you put on the Highline power lines for HO scale. So I did is I took 4 pieces, cut them equal length, and I put a little bit of super glue in the end, so that way they're just a balled up chunk on the end of it. So it worked out pretty good. What I'm going to do is just take and stick this right on the end here, so it looks like it's coming out of that boot. And once that dries and cures, now I can take and separate the wires and get them to their coordinated spots. Okay guys, so we're getting a little further and further. So I got the rest of those plug wires on. And I put some wire across the injectors. Actually, it's just string. So on top of the injectors, I just run a black wire across there. I'm going to bring them both up together, up to the top, because the harness on this actually sits on the edge of the plenum. What I might do is just take and run them back together. So right now, I'm going to do is, I talked about that water line. So I'm going to add this piece in. I'm going to paint it black. I grab it. So this is going to go down into the water pump, this bend here. And this will just set along the back. There should be 2 lines here. I may run another one right next to it, now that I'm talking about it. I'm not going to drop it down into the engine because that'll just be too hard to try to simulate that. So what I'm going to do is just take and glue those 2 wires to those 2 together. And I'm going to bend this out just a little bit so when I get it in the car, I can put a heater hose on it. So I'm just using some Tamiya extra thin. I think I'm going to put these in here just to hold this for me because that's getting tricky. Sometimes those come in handy. I'm just going to glue those like that. Give a little bit of extra love there. And we'll put some black paint on it. So we're just going to take some of the Tamiya black. And a lot of times when I have stuff like this, I don't usually, I won't usually like get a brush out. A lot of times just take and just hit it with a toothpick or something. Save me getting the brush out. This works just as quick. Quick and simple. Especially something like this is not a big deal. Like I say, it saves me the cleanup of a brush. It does just as good a job. Alright, we'll let that set for a minute. Now where my glue overshot the rubber here, I'm going to put just a dab of this here on the end of it. Just take that sheen off there. So we'll see how that dries. And after that, that's pretty much all I'm going to do in the engine. So we're going to let that dry just for a few minutes, and then we're going to put that on. We're going to put our plenum back on it, and I'm going to run 2 drop hoses down off that plenum, and we're going to call this good. We got this line here has pretty much dried. Like I said, it's going to be our heater line. That's going to tuck right in up against the water pump, and it'll just hang off to the back of the engine. I'll set that in there like so. Leave it just on the edge of that head. So what we're going to do is get that glued in. Once that's glued down, I got my plenum. I got my little hoses put on. So those are going to go down onto that line. So I'll get them, before I put this on there, I'll cut these. So I'll cut them to where they're pretty much flush to the bottom. That way I don't have to mess with them once they're glued down. Alright, I'm going to get this glued on quick, and we'll go from there. And I also I just took and bent some styrene, hit it with the Molotov pen. So it's going to sneak up behind here and tag into that peel line sitting there right there. So I figure I'll put that on after the other line is put in. That way I'm not fighting the two. Let that to lay right about there. While it's tacking up for a second here, we'll take and cut these down. So it just needs a little trimming. This one will be about here. So this one's going to go past the EGR valve a little farther. Okay, that's nicely glued on. So I think before I put the plenum on, I'm going to try to weasel this other piece in there quick by the little line here. But I'm not sure how well that's going to sit in there. Oh, there we go. There's something like that. We'll drip a CA there and call that good. I'm going to take this really thin CA, and I'm going to put a drip of it right down in there. So it gives it a little something to bond to other than just the piece of top, because that's obviously not going to hold it once I start moving it. Of course, I touch everything but what I want to touch. There we go. Then we'll get our upper plenum put back on, and we'll call it good. Okay, we'll let that plenum dry for a second. Alright guys, so we got those hoses glued on. It turned out pretty cool. So now we're going to take that wire, and while we're already here, we're going to run it across the bottom of this EGR sensor. Now I'm going to go to the throttle position sensor, and then to the idle air control motor. Just put a little touch of CA in there. So obviously we're just running the wire around. It's not like it's getting plugged in, so it's just the illusion that it's there. I don't know why sometimes that CA just doesn't seem like it sticks like it should. Okay guys, we are done. We're done. So there we have it. So we got a fuel rail in there with our injectors. We have our heater hose on the back. So once we get the body in there, we can just attach these to the firewall. Like I said, we got our plug wires on there. We got our fuel line coming down. I put a hose on the power steering pump. It's just a return hose. I'm not going to put a pressure hose on there, I just put on there for looks. And I got my little rubber hoses coming down off the plenum, and they are going to this line here. and then I run a wire around the injectors, and then I have it going back up to the EGR sensor, and just tagged it to the throttle body and into the throttle air motor there, and that's it. So I think that looks pretty cool. It really dressed it up a lot, kind of dialed it out a little bit. That should look pretty good in the car. Yeah, those injectors I think turned out pretty cool. For just some homemade, just something quick and easy. Like I say, this side here I knew you wouldn't be able to see that well, so that's alright. So there we have it. There's our detailed 5-liter. It's detailed she's going to get. I mean, I could go extreme and run the wire to the starter. And so this here, when I first opened the kit, I wasn't really paying attention. This is actually the smog pump. So this line, this top piece here would have a heavy rubber hose coming up, and the hose would come up and across, and that converter. So this converter assembly has this pipe here. So that this engine used to have a pipe that would come across the back of the intake right here, and then you'd have a tube coming up, and this would pump air, and it go into this tube, and there's a valve there, and that would have another hose going down in here, so I'd pump air into those converters. So I thought, it's interesting they put that on there, because usually first thing a guy does, you remove that smog pump. And there's no AC compressor in here, because the AC compressor actually should sit right here where the power steering is. The power steering should actually be down here. But it's a drag car, so I get it. I got mine all altered on my car, so whatever does the job. So there we go, guys. Like I say, it's a little tedious, not gonna lie. And like I said, I don't usually do plug wires a lot, so I'm not the greatest at them. I really give you guys kudos that you guys put the little clips and everything in there. My fingers just don't work that good anymore, and it's hard for me to do that, so that's about as best you're gonna get. But I think that turned out pretty cool. All right, guys, gonna wrap this video up. It's run pretty long, I think, and we will get this installed in the car and get some more built. So I appreciate you guys watching and checking out the channel, and thanks for following along, and we will see you on the next build. You guys have a good one.